If you pay any attention at all to what the world's best players are doing, you'll know that nobody really shifts off the ball in the backswing. Stack&Tilt first described the three-dimensional movement of the spine some 20 years ago in their book, and nothing has changed to this day. If you want to learn how to make a centered backswing, one that can promote the most accurate and consistent ball striking that you've ever experienced, you're going to want to stick around and watch today's video. Once heavily criticized for prescribing a no-shift backswing and instead making a centered backswing around an axis, using the spine as the axis and making this stacked backswing, Stack&Tilt has now become the standard as far as backswings are concerned in all major players across all tours. Nobody's shifting off the ball anymore. If you're paying attention, just a little bit of attention, you'll know that that's true. And so what you need to do is build a backswing with no shift. Understand how the spine works in a very specific way to enable you to be stacked at the top from this front view and tilted to the ground from this down the line view. And to do that, we have to understand that the spine moves in 3 planes of motion. Most people are familiar with the turn part, the rotation piece that's been prescribed for many years for golfers to play better golf. But unfortunately, that's incomplete. It doesn't tell the whole story. There's other movements of the spine that need to be understood if your goal is to make a centered pivot from the front view, and one where you maintain this inclination to the ground from a down the line view. The first of those movements would be flexion extension. Flexion or forward bend would be how a golfer sets up to the ball. I'm just using this stick here to help you see that angle. And extension would be if a golfer was to stand up, move the spine into a more erect position. And the flexion extension of the spine is happening throughout the backswing, the downswing and the follow through. The golfer is constantly going through a range of extension through the backswing, flexing going back down to the ball, and then extending again on the follow through. And when I do that, you look at this camera angle and you think, well, your body's raising up a lot, your head's bouncing up and down. I don't see that happening in your swing or any good swing for that matter. And you'd be correct. And that's because at the same time that the up and down piece is happening, there's an appropriate amount of side bend, of tilt to the left in the backswing and to the right in the downswing that replaces the forward bend. So when it look from the front view and we do a proper backswing, everything looks to stay very centered, very stacked if you like. It looks very easy, but to do that you have to combine 3 very specific movements. So let's isolate those movements for you to see. Take your normal setup, stand up, hold the club out in front of you. This is the extension part. I've moved from the forward bend that I have at setup into this full extension, which I should have at the top of my backswing. Yet I've raised up quite a few inches here. I've stood up away from the ground. I don't really do that in the swing because at the same time that I'm standing up during the backswing, I'm at the same time replacing that with a left tilt. So I extend, I tilt, and I turn in order to complete this centered, stacked backswing. If you watch yourself from this front view and you see your head moving, the likelihood is in most cases the head moves away from the target, and that would be someone who turns while retaining too much of the forward bend. So the forward bend that I was demonstrating using the stick earlier and now using the club, if I was to keep that forward bend angle with my spine and turn, I'd look like this. This would be a swing that I'd see the shortest hitters making. There's very little travel of the arms and the club, very low power, and also lots of compromise here being made to the low point once the upper body starts to shift away from the target. That's maintaining too much of the forward bend, the flexion, and the golfer not learning to extend, stand up, and tilt to the left. So it's the extension and the tilt that are the additional pieces you need if you're looking to make that perfectly centered backswing. Learning to make a centered backswing gives you the greatest chance of controlling the low point with some degree of consistency. We've spoken in previous videos about how contact is the number one fundamental you're looking for. That quality and consistency of contact becomes much easier to do if you make a centered backswing. And it's not just the choice of me or a stack and tilt instructor to say that that's the best way to do it. The best players in the world are demonstrating this. The best player in the world demonstrates this as well as anybody else. Xander Schauffele, who's just won the PGA Championship this week, also demonstrates this same principle of a centered or stacked backswing. This isn't really a stack and tilt thing at all. This is an everybody thing. This is an accurate description of how golfers use their spine for the purpose of making a centered backswing. And if you do it correctly, you'll have this nicely stacked spine at the top from this front view. And as I've already said, you'll have this beautifully tilted angle to the ground from this down the line view. A couple of really good checkpoints to use here when you're filming your swing from this front view to ensure that you're doing this correctly would be to keep a check on the right side of your head to make sure that there's not too much movement, or any movement for that matter, away from the target. Secondly, watch the trajectory of the lead shoulder. The poorest golfers have the least amount of tilting in their backswing, meaning when they swing back, the turning piece of their swing, the rotational component, overrides the tilt, pulls them away from the target, has their shoulders too level to the ground from this down the line view. The shoulder has moved on too flat or too level of a trajectory. A great tip you would use here would be to think down, in, under the chin. The lead shoulder is going to go down and in, under the chin. That simple movement of just moving the lead shoulder down and in, under the chin, so this club points towards the ball, could be the piece that unlocks the tilt component, which most of you are lacking. The tilting is the bit that tends to be lacking. There's generally plenty of turn. In fact, I teach a lot of lessons where I tell students not to think about turning at all. The turn component is already sufficient for most of you. It's the lack of tilting to the left as you turn to the right, and the extension of getting the chest to feel like it's up towards the sky. That's the piece you want to practice. The left shoulder down towards the ball in the backswing. Once it reaches the ball here, you've reached the point of full turn. There's no need to keep going longer and longer. In fact, many of you are getting this wrong because you're trying to make a bigger turn. And a bigger turn is compromising all of the other parts of the geometry of your swing. And if you want to ensure you're doing the extension part sufficiently, then you can put the club into your breastbone, pick it up and stick it into your chest here, and just hold it like a normal golf club. If I was keeping too much forward bend, if I was retaining this flexion that I have it set up too long into the backswing, I would make a backswing that looks like this, as I've already discussed. My chest would stay down, my head would translate away from the target. I would be only able to make a very short backswing. Instead, what you're looking for with this club into your chest or breastbone is to extend out of that forward bend and point the club up to horizontal, or even just above horizontal if you can, getting the thoracic part of your chest to extend. I often describe this to students as a chest up feeling. My chest is up towards the sky. And if I go from this forward bend to this extended backswing, you'll see very quickly how much longer my backswing can get automatically. There's no extra turn here, this is just the extension. How much longer my backswing can get and how much more centered it becomes. I go from having a backswing where my head's moved off the ball to now, as I extend correctly, grab my head and tip me up and tilt me and extend me, tilt me and extend me. Now my backswing's longer, which is great because it gives me more potential power, and I'm back in the centered, stacked position from this front view. And the best way for you to do this is to build some kind of practice station which helps to guide your body through the movements. We've created this obstacle here. I've set up the iRange Sports tripod at the corner of the mat. I've got a tour stick and alignment stick here, angled so it's just to the side of my head. You can create any sort of similar training station, but create something where there's a small obstacle just to the side here of my right ear. Any movement that I make incorrectly would cause me to move to the right and strike the obstacle. I don't want to do that. I can make practice swings here, ensuring that I'm doing the tilting, Left shoulder down, down and in under the chin, down and in under the chin. And at the same time, I'm getting the sensation that my chest is opening up and I'm looking up to the sky here. I'm getting the extension and the tilt. The turn comes for free. That's the wonderful thing about this exercise. You don't need to think about turning anymore. You've already been turning enough. You've not been tilting or extending sufficiently. So, obstacle to the side of my head, extend, tilt, turn, extend, tilt, turn. There's my perfect backswing. Stacked from the front view, tilted from down the line. Now I can go ahead and hit some shots. Really nice shot, little push, draw, solid contact. The best players are swinging like this. They're not shifting off the ball. I've already told you that, and if you're paying attention, you'll already see that. If you really want to experience better ball striking, then go to the trouble of setting up a practice station like this and making sure you're conforming to the movements. It's not enough to simply watch this video and say, right, I'm going to go out there and just keep my head still. It's not how it works. If it was that easy, you'd all be expert at this game, and most of you are not. Set up the practice station, get the feedback of how to move your body. Remember, if you want to move in a way where you stay stacked from this front view and tilted from this down the line view, you have to move in a very specific way. This training station will help you to do that. The other great benefit of this training station is it allows you to hit balls. You can go at full speed once you're ready. You can also build up slowly. But having the obstacle to the side of your head, hugely beneficial. Experience the ball striking that you've always wanted and allow yourself to consolidate that improvement by using some feedback that actually helps these improvements to stick. So some education on the backswing movements there to help you make a centered pivot once and for all. If you really want to be better at this game, a centered or stacked backswing is truly the way to go. And as I mentioned, if you're really serious about improving, you need to build these practice stations. If you need some help doing that, then you could take a look at the iRange Sports tripod that I used in my setup today. I'll put a link down in the description should you be interested in taking a look at that product. But whether or not it's that product or anything else, if you're not setting up practice stations, you're really not serious about your improvement. You only again have to look at the driving ranges on the tour every single week to watch the best players in the world using training stations, using obstacles, using obstructions, using things to help guide their body to make the moves that they want to. If it's good enough for the best players in the world, I think it's good enough for you as well. I mentioned in the video that Stack&Tilt first described this three-dimensional movement of the spine nearly 20 years ago. If you haven't seen or read the Stack&Tilt book yet, I'd highly recommend you pick one up. I'll put a link to their website down in the description as well. There's tons of great information on that website that can help you to become a better golfer. And now that you have the perfect backswing pivot, you're going to want to watch a video on how to start the downswing correctly. Why don't you check out this video I made right here, the Crush the Can drill, also part of the Stack&Tilt book, and it describes how the best players move from the backswing to the downswing in order to hit the ball as consistently as they do.